feels like it's getting harder.
That's because it's a bit of an old, probably not been undone in a long time. Do you want me to have a go? What we can do, if you stop for a second. What this does is it exposes where all the crap comes in through the top here and the rain and stuff, but mainly the leaves come in and they block up the drain point and then they rust behind this, and I haven't taken it off to look to see if this is a rusty one or not behind here. So this is the moment of truth that we find out, oh, is it good or not? On the bulkhead, and I'm hopeful by what it looks like. There's a bit of a sign just here, if you look, of rust.
Yeah.
But other than that, it doesn't look too bad, but it is hidden by all this insulation that was on it. And this insulation alone keeps in some moisture, which isn't good for it. So that's the other one done. Do you want to do the top one there?
Sure.
That's it. What you were doing then is dead right.
I'm trying to keep it straight and it's tricky.
What this does is it just removes this clip to that pipe here, and there's some spacers that need to come out and not drop like that. Put them back on. Now this is the way, and in theory we should be able to see right in, but this bar is holding it in place. See this metal bar which holds the wheel? So if we undo this one here, we'll be able to take that piece out. So with that bar removed that holds the wheel, we lift this out of place, just like that. This is the back of it, if you look. You can see how it looks. And if you go back down there, normally on a Visa, all of this is rusted to pieces. Now there's a bit here, you can see it's a bit rubbish, but this is all solid. And the reason these rust here is because they collect so much rubbish in them. And the drain hole is just here where my finger is, and it goes down here into a tube that runs at the back of the engine. You can't see it, but I can show you on the Visa GTI they're the same. And if these block up with bits of leaves and things, this whole area here at the back, this whole area here gets full up of water, and it just rots through and into the bulkhead all the way along. And luckily this one, as you can see, bar this tiny bit of surface rust here, is not bad at all. In fact, it's probably the best I've seen, even going back to the days when I drove them. I've given it a bit of a clean, and you can see that's the worst patch just there where it's starting to go, but that's fine, that's treatable. So's that. The bit actually inside is fine. And then if you compare that to the Visa GTI, just follow me over here, and you can see the difference from when they go. And as you can see there, that's what happens when they're really bad. Let's see if she'll start. Takes a couple of turns normally. There we go, she fired. Let's give her a bit more choke. Oh, we're steaming up. Oh, rain stop play. So she's ticking over. you can hear behind us possibly the central locking. Say hello, Sam.
Hi.
Clicking away. So that's another fault I need to deal with. So she starts alright, runs okay. So I promised a bit of a brief history on me on Citroen. So I remember my dad, should we put the heating on? I remember my father bringing home a CX. We'd always had Ford Cortinas and things when I was a wee little lad. I was only probably about 9, 10, somewhere around that, when he came home with a Citroen CX, and I thought, oh my goodness, all my friends' dads had Fords. I loved Fords. We had brand new Cortinas all the time. And then one day my dad comes home with a Citroen CX, a second-hand, few years old Citroen CX Safari, and I thought, he's gone mad. And of course, the first few times I sat in this Citroen CX of his, I thought, no, I don't like it. I don't like it. I can't like this car. I love Fords. I just don't like it. Of course, the Citroen bug soon hit. A few family holidays away soon sorted that out, and with all the space dials on a CX, you can't not fall in love with it. Never mind the ride quality, which is second to none in my opinion. Unless you're going to talk about Xantias and BXs and GSs and GSs and all other types of Citroens, which is the best or not. Well, most would argue it's one model or not, depending on what they own. For what it's worth, I'd go probably Xantia. But I still would prefer to own a CX over any other Citroen. Anyway, so that's how I fell in love with Citroens. And when I started driving my first car at 14, we had a private lane at the back of my father's house. We were lucky. It was a Citroen GS Estate, and it was rusted to pieces, but I learnt to work on it, learnt to work on the CXs, the BXs, etc., all that the family had, and that's how I got into Citroens, and how I learnt what I learnt, all because of my dad. And that's really my aim now, is to teach my children that. Now, I've had a lot of health problems, as I've said before, so I can't teach them everything that I'd like to, but they've been involved in the ongoing restoration heavily on the Visa, because I can't do some of the things, but I can tell them what to do. And I can show them what to do with this, and they can enjoy this with me. And also the Zara, which you can see covered just in front of me here, they can learn to do stuff on that. If you see me at car shows and things and you think, oh, he don't look that bad, you just blooming big fat lump, 9 times out of 10 I'm living on huge amounts of steroids to get through the day. So that's the reason for that. And I'm not looking for sympathy. There's far worse off than me, and there's children that are far iller than I am. So I don't want sympathy. What I want is just sometimes some understanding why sometimes I don't get as far with some of the cars that we own in our family. Because there has been some sort of comments by various people of, oh, you've got all these cars, you never get them done in time. Because if you look at the ones, there's some at my dad's house. My dad's got an SM, a couple of CXs, my brother's got a CX, amongst other cars. So Citroen does run deep within the family, but they can't always be done at once, of course, and things take time. And that's anyway the story of how I got into Citroens. It was all through my dad. He was in the Citroen Car Club, my brother's in the Citroen Car Club, I'm in the Citroen Car Club. My dad used to play a part of one of the area people at one point, writing a column, but that's going back a long time, probably back into the 80s. I remember I was at school, so it's a long time ago. But, you know, health sometimes gets in the way, family life does, you know, when you've got children, you don't get everything, and of course there's also a work balance, isn't there? So, anyway, that's my love for Citroens, how I got into it, how I learnt things that I've learnt on cars, and of course being a fan of TV shows as well, has sort of reignited my passion. And it wasn't till I had my stroke about 10 years ago, minor stroke, that I really got back into cars, and it was because I bought a a really cheap Citroen VTS, the Phase 1. And I fell in love with that car, and I fell in love with fixing up and doing cars. And because of what happened to me with the stroke, and that's where my love for cars started again. And it sort of came in time with For the Love of Cars on TV, which is why I'm a mad fan of Ant Anstead and Wheeler Dealers, and that's how that all came about. So I hope you understand a bit more why I love Citroens. I've owned 3 GTI Visas in my life. One that was written off, beautiful white one I had, that was written off by a drunk taxi driver at my dad's house one night, which was real heartbreaker. I've had a couple of GS's. I've owned one CX, but I've driven many. My dad even shipped them to New Zealand at one point. Yeah, so we've done quite a lot with Citroens over the years, and like I say, I've owned virtually every model of Visa, and now I finally own a reasonable one in this 14 TRS, and we will get there with the GTI, but it'll just take time. So bear with me. I hope you understand why I've said what I've said, so that you understand where the passion comes from, why I love the car, and onwards and upwards, as they say. Thanks for watching the video. Cheers.